Why Cannes Matters. We're talking about it in the France 24 debate on day 8 of the world's most famous film festival. Joining us from Cannes is France 24 film critic Lisa Nesselson. Welcome back, and we want to welcome alongside you Greek producer Konstantinos Kantovrakis of Heretic Productions. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Welcome.
And we welcome back as well filmmaker and novelist Aurélie Lévy. You wrote a book called My Life for an Oscar. Your latest project is called Off the Grid.
Yeah, my new documentary is called Off the Grid. I follow a bunch of photographers all over the world who are incredibly committed to their craft, so much so that they don't really care about fame or recognition. So it's very opposite of the subject we're talking about tonight.
Very, very far from getting noticed, getting recognized. Konstantinos Kantovrakis, how has your Cannes fortnight been so far? What kind of a rhythm do you have?
This year I took it a bit easy. I've had, this is I think the 15th time I come to Cannes, and the first time that I have managed to watch more than 3 films, except for my first years here as a film critic, where I was watching, I don't know, 3 or 4 films per day. But it's been going very well, in fact, yes.
And Cannes for you, what does it mean in terms of, do you see it as some place that, do you see it as a festival that belongs to the French, or is it bigger than that? Is it really a world festival?
No, not at all. It's definitely a world festival. It's a meeting point for all of us. It's a place where we all come to meet people, to discuss film, to watch films. It's definitely not only for the French market or the French filmmakers. It's a meeting point for the world cinema.
All right, some people do
Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
Some people do like the Frenchness, like Woody Allen, whose Café Society opened this year's festival. He spoke to G.D. Godula.
Well, when I started coming, I found that I enjoyed the atmosphere very much. You know, as you know, I never come in competition, but I like to visit the south of France. My wife likes it very much too and enjoys it. I like to see friends that I don't get a chance to see who come here. Many cinema people come, and I get a chance to see them and say hello. And the audiences are very cinema-oriented, and so, you know, it's a very positive atmosphere. So it's sort of like a little vacation for a few days. When I made my movie here, I made some movie.
There's so many you can't remember.
I made one movie here, Magic in the Moonlight. I got to spend several months here, living in Mougins, and I loved it.
Lisa Nesselson, Woody Allen not in competition with that film that was on opening night. You were mentioning in part 1 of our discussion how people who are far from the festival hall, have a different view of what the movies are from those that are inside. What would you say are crowd favorites when it comes to this festival, and what does that say about the movies today?
Well, my building in Paris had a concierge for many years, and when my husband and I would come back from the festival exhausted, she'd say, "So, what stars did you meet?" And I would name incredibly important filmmakers that I had dreamed of meeting my entire life, and she would just have a blank look on her face, and she's by no means an unintelligent woman, but the names that I worship meant absolutely nothing to her. And when I'd go through, I'd say, well, blah, 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 and I'd say, finally, oh, I met some, French singer who had a few hits in the 1980s, and she'd say, finally, okay, you met someone famous. So we forget, we're so immersed in our heroes and following the careers of people that we forget that what people really want to see is those stars with a capital S. And so who wouldn't want to see a movie with George Clooney and Julia Roberts? And there were a lot of headlines, can you believe Julia Roberts has never been to Cannes before? Well, yes, I mean, what opportunities would she necessarily have had? This film was a perfect opportunity community, Jodie Foster's. And same thing for the film Out of Competition with Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe. Who wouldn't want to see those two guys in a movie together, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing the outside world needs to remember is that media sort of conspires to give the impression that this is a very glamorous event. And in the evenings when people go up the red carpeted steps, yes, indeed, it is glamorous. And there are people who spend a fortune or borrow a fortune in jewelry and clothing just to look their very best. And it makes a lot of work for stylists and makeup people, and that's terrific. But what most of us come here for, and certainly the 4,000 journalists, is the films themselves. And those we start watching at 8:30 in the morning in the most unglamorous conditions you can imagine, but on a huge, huge screen and with beautiful, beautiful surroundings.
So Lisa, in 29 years, how has the festival changed and how have tastes changed? I'll put the question to both you and Konstantinos.
How has the festival changed? Well, if we go all the way back to the first one that was planned in the beginning of September 1939, that got called off because Germany invaded Poland. And people say that there were actually posters side by side for the first Cannes Film Festival, or what was meant to be the first, and the mobilization orders for people who were of age to go be in the military. It took them a while to get the festival back on its feet after the war. And I have a few friends who were here in the 50s. They're older now, but they said that everybody mingled. There was no hierarchy. There were no badges with different colors and a very strict order of whether you're going to get into the auditorium or not. There was one theater, and Jean Cocteau was the head of the jury, I think 2 times. Someone told me that at one point they were watching a movie that was in competition. His stomach started rumbling, and he said, "Hey, everybody, I think we should stop for lunch, and we'll come back and watch the movie later." That is so inconceivable now. Everything is run down to the second. You have armies of people ushering you in and out, and there are very, very strict rules about who can sit where. I had a friend for many years who came, an elderly gentleman who only had one eye that worked. He wanted to sit in the front row. Most people don't want to sit in the front row and look up at that huge screen, but they said, "No, no, sir, with your badge, you can't do that. You have to sit over here." They try to be accommodating, though, but when you have tens of thousands of people, and many of them are just desperate to see a movie, any movie. When I first came here as a young cinephile with a cinephile badge, any film I got into was exciting. And in fact, those are some of my happiest memories, because the one reason I come to Cannes, and that hasn't changed over the years, is to see a film the first time it's shown before my well-meaning colleagues start ruining it by giving away what it's about, the best gags if it's a comedy, the most dramatic scenes if it's a drama, and suddenly there is no way to go back in time and truly discover it from scratch. Of course, the world press comes here, and their editors want them to give everything away. If there's something juicy, if there's something sexy, if somebody refers to some event, I mean, Woody Allen's possible past actions get dredged up over and over and over again, and there's more headlines about that than about the movie he made that actually opened the festival. So the way it's changed is we have this instantaneousness. I have colleagues now who are expected to file their review paragraph by paragraph as they go along. Vincent Canby of the New York Times used to write his review on a manual typewriter. A guy would get on a scooter, take it to the Nice airport, put it on an airplane. It would get to New York within a day, and it was printed in the days to come. Nobody was on the edge of their seat waiting to hear, is this commercial? Is it good or bad? We had more time to think about the films, and I think that's something we've lost.
Konstantinos?
I would definitely agree with Liz. Yes, I would dream to have lived the days that Liz described. I knew and first came to Cannes when the festival was already grown and big into what it is now still. For me, it's important and quite interesting to see how people grow within Cannes, because I was here the first time, I think I was 23 years old, now I'm almost 40, and there's all these people that you meet every year in Cannes, just in Cannes. They come from all different corners of the world, and you see them year by year, and we all grow with this festival. And for me, this is in this crazy big festival with all these limousines and all this police and all these reporters and all this craziness. That's the interesting human element that I find, is how we all have grown with Cannes into who we are now, and coming back here as film professionals to do our work, whether it is to write about films or make films. That's an incredible aspect of it for me.
Increasingly globalized, the digital age means the pressure to go fast. If we look at the top grossing films worldwide, though, yet, what do we see? No surprises. It's American movies still. Hollywood blockbusters. We can show you the figures from Rent Rack. 7 of the 10 most popular films in France, by the way, were also American. These numbers, by the way, revised Aurélie Lévy to exclude Chinese movies. The Chinese film industry growing hugely, but a film, its biggest grossing film, a CGI fantasy film, Monster Hunt, accused of manipulating box office figures. And actress Gong Li said she regretted there were no Chinese films in competition this year. She said the box office, the numbers, real or fake, you don't really know. But of course, this is about money. However, forging has a terrible effect on culture and entertainment. There's a lot at stake. Is national reputation at stake when it comes to film?
Yeah, I mean, and films are incredibly influential, and it's something the early studio moguls understood. Let's not forget the film industry was created by a bunch of Jews who emigrated from Eastern Europe and who came to California to make movies. They were under Edison had monopoly over filmmaking, and they quickly realized that through their craft, they could actually create culture and create, influence the collective psyche. So yes, there's a lot at stake in film, and yes, American blockbusters are still very big because they're crafted in a way that is extremely ingenious. Whether you like it or not, one has to, it's something to be reckoned with. And then as for the digital, because you were talking about digital and all that, and I mean, the film industry is really changing. People are not going to the theater as much. The figures are still pretty good, but they're lower. Films are being watched, content is being watched in different venues and in different ways. But the American blockbuster has managed to survive and to sell through its storytelling a lot of merchandise and licensing. I mean, a blockbuster is more than just a movie. It's an ad for many, many products that are going to make even more money, and that can finance other types of content. I don't know if...
Konstantinos Kontovrakis, would you say that today's technology, today's way of doing business, is that good or bad for a Greek movie?
Well, it depends on how you see it. I would say it's good in the sense that it facilitates our films into traveling faster and in a broader way. There's VOD platforms, online streaming platforms where our films can access a wider audience. On the other hand, the marketplace is shifting so much, and people are still at odds. Distributors, international distributors, sales agents are still at odds at how to deal with this shifting marketplace. There is a huge potential, but the audience behavior is changing rapidly, faster than we film professionals are ready to understand, and we feel that we're constantly running behind our audience. It's interesting times. It's definitely a growing and shifting audience, but we still don't know exactly how to address it. But it helps. A Greek film like the ones that I produce can nowadays only reach an audience through film festivals like Cannes or other festivals around the world, bigger or smaller, and through the internet. This is immensely important for us because we can now reach an audience, whereas before it was extremely competitive for the films to be distributed theatrically in cinemas. We are not ready to say that it's a steady business in that sense, or a steady market. But I'm an optimist, so I'm hopeful that there will be a real ability for us to reach this audience that is there for our films.
And also, there's always a need for good stories, and entertainment is something that people are always going to want, and film is first and foremost entertainment. It's an art form, but it is.
It's entertainment, but it's also politics. We've seen, for instance, and it's politics every year. We've seen this year the latest Ken Loach film denouncing how in England social services are failing poor people. This year, no exception when it comes to politics. When you listen as well to Kleber Mendoza Filho, he came to present Aquarius just days after the impeachment of Brazil's president and the doing away with the post of culture minister in his country.
Me, as a Brazilian, we are discussing politics all the time, right now, over the last few months, because there is a coup d'etat going on. But I think the film does not discuss politics in such a frontal and obvious way, but it discusses kind of like going to the side, and then, yes, ultimately it is a political discussion.
And the cast, by the way, of that film held up protest signs on the red carpet. One reaction on the hashtag F24debate, the protest against Rousseff's impeachment on the Cannes red carpet, just a publicity stunt to gain money for the movie, while actual Brazilians suffer in an awful situation. Lisa Nesselson, let me ask you your reaction to the fact that politics always plays a part, and how do you see politics this year at the Cannes Film Festival? What are some of the recurring things that are coming up?
Well, the Cannes Film Festival is one of the few that will show films from countries that the world should think about more, but doesn't necessarily, and the spotlight will be on those places. It's unusual that there's this incredible conjuncture of history being made in Brazil, and a film that obviously was put into production well before it could be known that any of those shifts were going to take place. And that makes it pop, and it makes it interesting to people who ordinarily wouldn't look at it. Another thing about the way the festival used to run was until I think the 1970s, it was each nation that chose the film that was going to represent them in the competition. And during the height of the Cold War, it was incredibly important that your country get a prize if over another country that you hated or didn't have good diplomatic relations with. One of the reasons this festival was started in the first place is that the Venice Film Festival is slightly older, and a lot of people objected to the fact that Mussolini and even Goebbels were designating which films had to get a prize regardless of their artistic merit. And so it was kind of like the Olympics. It was, ha-ha, you know, we're Romanian and our film won and the American film didn't. That seems absolutely ludicrous now, because we've shifted from that your film representing your entire country and all the people in it and their entire political apparatus to money and power and product placement, and the fact that the entire world now understands, they think, what life in America is like. And I sometimes think there's the Deauville Festival of American Cinema every year in the autumn here in France, and I see the same women who live in this little town of, I think, 3,000 people, maybe a little more. And all they know about America, they've never been there, is from watching about 40 or 50 American independent films, so all sorts of extreme weird behavior, and then the sort of blockbustery stuff. And they are absolutely convinced that they know what America is like based on that. I'm not one to think that if I've seen 5 Romanian films in my life, I know what life in Romania is like for the people who live there, the struggles they may have, the dreams and desires they may have. But American pop culture has really infused the entire world. You mentioned China earlier. They used to very carefully control, I think it was 10 foreign movies a year total were permitted to be shown in China, and now they are building 10 screens a day to keep up with the demand. So Hollywood has to take that into consideration, not offend a potential Chinese audience, and that is affecting our storytelling, because until about 25 years ago, American movies made their money back in North America, and if the rest of the world wanted to see them, that was gravy. Now Hollywood absolutely requires the rest of the world, and in fact there were certain Woody Allen movies 15, 20 years ago, 60% of their box office, I believe, came from just ticket buyers here in France who never lost interest in the films of Woody Allen. So the man is now 80, he makes a film a year, and he has French audiences in a way to thank for the fact that he never had to stop making films, and I'm incredibly happy about that.
Konstantinos Kontovrakis, my education about the situation in your country under the generals came from watching the movie Z by Costa Gravas when I was a boy. When you hear Aurélie Lévy saying how a movie, first of all, has to be a good story, a good yarn, how much should it be impregnated with a strong social message?
Well, as you can imagine, we coming from Greece now, especially under the recent events, are always asked how do our films represent Greece and the financial crisis in Greece and all of that, even if we make a love story that has nothing to do with that. But I am a strong believer that yes, no matter what story you tell, you cannot disassociate it from the world it comes from. So it's a bit like the chicken and the egg question. All films are born in a social context and exist in a social context, and then people watch them and they interpret them according to their own social context. So yes, I mean, what Costa Gavras said was indeed right, and it's funny that you mentioned it because I saw him earlier, and it's one of the great things about Cannes that you just bump up onto Costa Gavras on your way here.
Of course, all in a day's work. Konstantin Kantovrakis, many thanks for taking the time to stop by our studios in Cannes. Thank you to France 24 film critic Lisa Nesselson, who will be with us all the way to the announcement of the Golden Palm winner. Aurélie Lévy, thank you. Stay with us. Our Media Watch segment is next. And Cannes is a feast for the eyes if you're scanning social media over this fortnight.
That's right, François. But if you're a film buff and you go onto Twitter and put in hashtag Cannes, you could risk being very disappointed unless you're also a gossip magazine, a fashionista, right? Because really that's very, very present in the social media footprint of the Cannes Film Festival. Let's take a look. Online you have, well, there's Kim Kardashian arriving yesterday in style, one presuming on her private jet. You've got Hollywood Reporter talking about Carrie Fisher's French Bulldog. Gary is the Fest's King Canine. We're pretty far away from, authentic cinema issues here. Vanity Fair, Leonardo DiCaprio and Kendall Jenner make waves at the Vanity Fair Cannes party. What else do we have for you, François? Blake Lively talks style, etc. So there's a lot of stuff about the red carpet, going up the steps, what people are wearing, what designer they're wearing, what stars flew in, what party they were at, who is sleeping with who. It's not really cinema.
It's not cinema, but Aurélie Lévy, the novel you wrote is based on your experience working as an assistant to a Hollywood actor. Mm-hmm. How would it be today in the era of Twitter?
Look, what?
You're choosing your words here.
No, I'm not. Well, it's all the same. But one thing you don't see is that a lot of this gossip and a lot of this is actually created by the studios and some of the executives to
It is promotion.
to hype up, of course. So,
right. I mean, I'm
someone
playing devil's
is,
advocate, if you like.
When an actor is photographed outside a hotel incognito, it's because half of the time his agent or his publicist gave the information to the press. So all this is very constructed, and it's storytelling, which is the base of filmmaking.
That's right. And I guess it does work in bringing a lot of attention onto the movies that are being
absolutely,
showcased
but also
at
on
the
other
Cannes Festival.
movies. The thing is, there are two things in Cannes. There are a great deal of professionals meeting to buy and sell films, which for the most part are not the films in the selection. And then there is a very good selection by Thierry Jousse, which is a little bit more. How would I describe it?
Just before we run out of time, I just want to bring attention to something Gérard Depardieu mentioned earlier this week, because it plays into all of this. Has it gone too far, or is it just part of the picture?
On.
Right,
which has gotten good reviews.
Indeed. So he spoke to Nice Matin, one of the local papers, and as Gala said, is Cannes making him lose his mind? Has he sort of lost the plot somehow? He said, walking up the steps, no thank you. And he said the festival has become completely pornographic. That was the word he used. He went on to say, TV has now invaded La Croisette too much. Yeah. I knew the festival at the time of Robert Favre-Lebray, Maurice Bessy, so he's talking about big names in the Cannes Film Festival. He said the last of the Mohicans, in other words, the last of the old guard, was Gilles Jacob. He was the president of the festival from 2001 to 2014. And he said now money is taking the place and we're too far away from cinema. He said there's some great films at Cannes, but there's just too much of the anyway for his
Money has
taste.
always been
Right.
Money has always been a great part of what Hollywood is about. It's a very lucrative business, and that's why it has so much power to some degree. But it is true that to some degree, people are becoming slaves to social media and to reality TV, and that the presence of Kim Kardashian in the Cannes Festival is controversial. Now but remember the Cicciolina, or I don't know how many years ago. It's also. There's always been an element of provocation.
Sure, but I guess the real
and
question
vulgarity
is you've got film festivals, you've got
contrast.
real film festivals where it's about the content, and then you've got
Right.
something like the Oscars where it's really just a show and it's about the big
I love-
studios who have the money who
Yeah.
can really support
The
such
Cannes
and
Film
such a
Festival in the
project.
50s had the pinups.
Right, so Cannes was a
outside.
bit of a counterpoint to maybe some of the overly money-orientated festivals in the past, and maybe it's becoming a little bit too glitzy and glamour and money-orientated now, the critics would say. But anyway, Gérard Depardieu, I'm not sure he's the most neutral sort of judge of the Cannes Festival.
No, but he has a point, and he is saying something about the world we live in and about how, who.
Too much money sometimes will dilute the, I guess, content, but I think it's still got both. It's got the glamour and it's got the
I don't know if it's so much about money as it is about reality TV and the actual content and the poorness of the content.
Right.
All right, the need for
The mediocrity of it all.
immediate reactions. Okay, I want to thank both of you.
Thanks, François.
I want to thank the rest of our panel, and thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate.